I'm Roy Figueroa, going live, and today we're going to talk about the correct way to use a microphone. Now, that might seem kind of silly. It seems like such a simple tool, but it's actually very, very important. Now, I'm a weekend warrior, which means I play mostly on the weekends. I don't play every night, and oftentimes I find myself, much like many of you probably, running my own sound, setting up my own PA and running the sound for the entire group or the entire band. And well, I'll tell you a story about one particular time. We're running sound, and a lady comes up to do some announcing, and she was a nice older gal, and she came out, and I kind of let her know, look, please, hold the microphone up really close to your mouth and things like that. And she looked at me kind of like, hello, and she tells me, look, I've been doing this for 30 years. And so I was like, okay, and I back off. And so she goes up and commences to talk to the audience, holding the microphone just like I'm holding it now. And everyone's out there going, we can't hear you, we can't hear you. And so she turns and looks at me and she's like, can you turn me up? And so I'm like, okay. And so I'm cranking it up and cranking the volume, and pretty soon you get that horrible sound, right? Feedback, and you've all heard it, and everyone's going, ah, and so I turn it down, and you can't hear it, turn it up, and maybe you've gone through this sort of thing before yourself, running sound, and it's like you just can't get the microphone loud enough. Well, the thing is, with vocals, in music, in a band setting, the vocals really need to be on top. They need to be way on top of the mix, and this is actually what sets apart a lot of really good sounding live bands from all the other live bands. When I started recording ourselves playing live music, I realized, wow, it kind of just sound like everybody else. And what is that? You get used to this sound where it's like you can hear the guitars and the drums and the bass and everyone's jamming, and then the vocalist is kind of buried in there, kind of, you can't really understand what they're saying or what they're singing, and you might recognize the song, but it's not like when you hear a song, a recording, the vocals are very present and everything else is in the background backing up the lead vocal. That's how it's supposed to be. Unless, of course, the guitar solo or somebody's taking, whoever's the lead instrument, that should be way on top of everything else. So to get back to the microphone, well, there's a lot of things that go into that, to setting levels and everything. But using proper microphone technique goes a long way. So let's talk about that. First of all, this is totally wrong. Okay? You want to have the microphone very close to your mouth. The thing with the microphone is it amplifies your sound, but you find yourself competing against guitar players, drummers, bass players who they tend to have unlimited volume level that they can use. With a microphone, even if your PA system has 10,000 watts of power, you can't access all of that power because as you turn it up, you get that horrible feedback sound. And now, first of all, what causes the feedback? Well, when the same sound that's coming into the microphone is being amplified and the microphone's picking it up from the speakers, it just creates this kind of sound loop, and that's what the feedback is. Now, one thing about a microphone is that it's designed to be directional. So it has feedback rejection from sound coming from the back, and it's designed to amplify what's coming from the front. So if your microphone is pointing at the speakers like this, that's when you get the feedback. But if I turn it the other way, I can have it in the same spot, and there's no feedback. Because the way the diaphragm is designed, it rejects sound coming from the back. Now, we're talking about a dynamic microphone, by the way, the kind you typically see on a live stage. We're not talking about a condenser microphone where people usually address from the side, and those are the ones that are hanging in a suspension and things like you'd see in a recording studio. Okay, this is for dynamic microphones. So one of the main rules is you want your loudspeakers to be out in front of you so that the sound's going out that way and there's not as much coming back this way. And that allows you to turn the volume up higher on your microphone. Now, that makes it hard to hear when they're out in front. You need to be able to hear yourself as a singer. That's why we use monitors, generally on the floor, facing you, kind of at an angle. And you want your microphone to kind of match the angle of the speaker, be exact opposite of the angle of the speaker as possible to reject the feedback. Okay, the next thing, for the same reason, the microphone's designed to be on axis. So you want to hold it, the same angle that you're singing. So it shouldn't be to the side like this or to this side, or, some people do silly things. Definitely not like this, not down here. The further you go, the worse it is. And the closer you get, it just makes it so much easier to control the sound. If you have it right here, now, I don't know if you can tell on the phone speaker, but there's a massive, larger amount of volume when you're close to the microphone than if I'm just right here. Already, you lose so much. So it's really frustrating when singers, they want to stand back from the microphone and then they're frustrated because they can't hear themselves. It's like all you have to do is get close, even touching it sometimes. Now, next, though, an important point is that the dynamics of your voice when you're singing dictate how close you should get. Because if you're singing really loud, you don't want to be right up in the microphone screaming, because that's going to cause distortion. It causes overdrives the inputs on the mixer, and you get these horrible sounds. So when you're singing loud, you really need to get further back from the microphone. And you got to use your ear to know how far. It takes experience to keep the volume at a proper level. And if you're singing really soft, like if I'm whispering like this, you can barely hear me. But I can be whispering the same level by getting close, and now you can hear me really well. So the distance from the microphone is really important. The angle and the distance. And if you move around, you can see you need to keep the angle the same. You want to keep the microphone right where it should be. In other words, if you're doing this and moving around like this, that's going to cause problems. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what you need to know to use a microphone properly. Oh, another thing, how do you hold it? There's a right way and a wrong way to hold it. Basically, the right way is holding it anywhere except this. I see people doing this all the time, holding it up here. I don't know, people think it looks cool or something. This causes serious problems because you're now defeating the feedback suppressing capabilities of the microphone. So it's designed, like I was telling you, to reject feedback from the back. When you do this, you destroy that, and now you're going to get a lot more feedback. You're going to have a lot more volume issues. So just don't cup the microphone like this. Don't do, all this stuff. Don't do it. It's no good. Hold it here. Anywhere else. Hold it as far back as you want. Just, you got to leave this part of the microphone open. So, if you do those things, you keep the microphone at a proper distance from your mouth. You keep the angle in the right place, whether it's on a stand or whether you're holding it. It makes it a lot easier to run your sound. It's a lot easier to get your vocals up to the level where they should be, where they're on top of the music, because now you can actually compete with the volume levels of the drums and the bass and the guitars. Who, by the way, those guys need to come down under the vocal level all the time, but that's a whole different discussion. Basically, that's the right way to use a dynamic microphone. Hope somebody got something out of this. We'll see you next time.